actually am missing something that's probably most important. Thank you, Tom. And I wanted to make a special note of this. And that is this morning we're joined by Kevin Moran, who is, the last I remember, Senior Vice President at Bank of America. And Kevin is a wonderful partner. I've known him for many, many, many years, having worked with him for quite a long time. Kevin has been a partner in this initiative along with Bank of America since its inception when it was launched in 2004. Cheryl McMillan, who's now with the Centers for Financial Education, has joined him and has been involved with him as well. But Kevin actually was one of the leaders in initially working on the development of this program, launching it, and providing the funding for this initiative on a statewide basis in all 12 markets. He's been a partner here for every one of our program launches, and even by surprise this morning, he's joining us as he comes off of a week vacation. So we hope you're well rested, Kevin, and appreciate your commitment to this initiative. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kevin Moran.
Well, thanks for the very warm introduction. My pleasure to be here this morning on behalf of the Bank of America, and my thanks to all of our partners here this morning, to Tom and Althea, Jim, and the organization, Carol, State Creditor's Office, as Carol mentioned, we worked together on this since its inception, Diane and Cheryl from the counseling, Luke from Laura's office, and of course, City of New Haven, the office of the mayor. So thanks everyone, thanks to all of you folks for coming out to this important event. We started Borrow Wise Initiative about 3 years ago now, and we've done it in a dozen communities. And when we first started, predatory lending, I don't think really had quite the buzz that it does now. I mean, so much has changed, especially within the last 6 months. What we've seen in the news regarding the subprime lending market, and the enormous impact that we're starting to see in many parts of the country. And I think we'll probably see, unfortunately, more of in the coming months in a lot of our urban areas in Connecticut and really throughout the state. The objective of this really is kind of fundamental to what the Bank of America represents, which is to empower our customers, to help them to grow wealth, maintain their assets, to be financially informed, to be able to be better customers of the bank, really, and better members of the community, to help to build wealth. Owning a home, as we know, can be pretty much the core component to building wealth for most families. And that home is so precious to people that to put it at risk by entering into a complex financial transaction without really the appropriate level of guidance and information, obviously is a critical issue. The Borrow Wise Initiative is really just about getting good information in front of people, and by using folks like yourself, trusted third parties, who can really reach folks in the community who need to get this valuable information. I think it's fair to say that when we enter into buying a home or thinking about using the equity in our home, most folks are going to talk to a lot of different people. And what we want is for the folks that you're talking to be trusted third parties, people that are going to provide valuable, useful direction. And that, I know a guy who made it real easy for me, he'll say yes. And unfortunately, human nature being what it is, people will quite often just take the simplest route, take the advice of perhaps someone that they shouldn't, and end up in a problem on their hands. So really the idea is to allow people to have the right information, to really be able to make the smart decision and to borrow wise. So we're delighted to be here. We're very happy with the partnership we've had for these many years with all of our partners in the room. We look forward to continuing that. We want to encourage folks to please stay through the presentation. Ideally, take this information back to the folks that you work with in the community, share it, work with our partners to help in educating the folks here in New Haven and taking advantage. Our pleasure to hear this one.
Thank you so much. We're going to bring up Diane Ball. Diane's the Consumer Credit Counseling Services Area Director of Education and Community Relations. And then one of our partners, and again, as Kevin and the other speakers have alluded to, really want to kind of take the information that's in the packet, moving over to a brief PowerPoint presentation and have just to kind of share and plant the seed and share the wealth of information with people, either your constituents or your churches or your clubs or your neighbors, et cetera. So the Consumer Credit Counseling Service is really a key component of the partnership, and Diane has some great information to share with you. Diane?
Thank you, Tom. Thank all of you for being here, especially our honored guests. Particularly thankful to the Office of the State Treasurer for providing the funding for BorrowWise, and Bank of America for making the funding available to the Treasurer's Office. All of you are partners in BorrowWise, as well as old friends, and it's happy for me, a wonderful opportunity to be here and see you all. I do want to tell you about a phone call that I received, and some of you may have received similar ones. It was a woman who said she was interested in homebuyer education, and I proceeded to tell her all the many opportunities for homebuyer education that there are in New Haven, and went on in discussion and realized that it was a little late for homebuyer education. That she unfortunately was already caught in a predatory or certainly subprime loan. She was telling me that her husband was working 3 jobs, that she was working 2 jobs, and I could hear the children playing in the background. Now, I referred her to others who hopefully could assist her in this mortgage, and I said a little prayer that the mortgage person who had written the loan had made some kind of a mistake so that she could get out of this horrible situation. But she was faced with her family not only being without a place to live, but with also losing all of the assets that they had, the assets that they had invested in their home. So that's really what BorrowWise is about. If you haven't picked up the packet, please do, because many of your names are already listed in there, or your organizations. If they're not, we can certainly add them, because we want as many places as possible for people to get the kind of help that they need, not just to try and get out of bad situations when they're in them, but what we need to do is prevent them from ever happening. So I thank you all very much for your attendance today, and turn the program back over to Jim.
Thank you so much, Diane. Before we go on to the PowerPoint presentation that Tom is going to lead, I just also want to recognize and acknowledge the support of Empower New Haven. As many of you know, we've worked closely with Empower New Haven on their IDA program, Individual Development Account program. Not only have more than 100 people taken advantage of matching savings to buy their own homes, but equally important, these folks have been required to go through our homebuyer education program. So those are folks who we know have gotten into reasonable kinds of mortgages and have not been subjected to the subprime market. And so getting the education early is a key ingredient to success. And Alcia, you've been just wonderful as a director of Empower New Haven, and we're so pleased to be partnering with you on this and other endeavors. I'd also just like to introduce Tracy Smith on my staff, who has been our IDA program administrator. Tracy has probably handled more IDA applications than anyone in the state of Connecticut, and is an expert in doing so. But we should all be proud of the fact that here in New Haven, we probably run the most successful IDA program anywhere in the state of Connecticut. So that's really just a hats off to you and to all of us for working together. The homebuyer education piece is so important so that people understand what it is that they're getting into when they borrow money to buy a home. It just is as simple as that. It is so tempting often for people to take a deal that they could grab without thinking through the repercussions, especially if it's being sold by somebody who is a sweet talker and is able to get a message across, and people are embarrassed to ask questions. And that's really the key. When you have someone who feels like, I don't know anything, this person seems to know all about finance, you're embarrassed to ask the question doesn't get asked, and that's how people get into trouble. And that's really a key component of all of our education programs, so that we can prevent people from getting into that situation. The other thing that happens is, and this is just a reality, people may come to us and may be counseled, and we may say, you know, you have to do some work on your credit before you can qualify for a good loan. And there are people who are impatient, and they say, well, I went to the New Haven Home Ownership Center, and I was told that it was going to take me 6 months before I could get a good mortgage, but I'm going to lose this house if I don't act now. And so they jump on something even though they've been counseled. I bring that up because it's not as simple as just providing the education. It's really making it sink in and providing the awareness of what the ramifications are going to be from making a bad decision. And yes, you may get that home now and not have to wait 6 months for it. But if, as Diane suggested, people have invested all of their money into the home, they've lost their equity, and they may never have an opportunity again to be able to purchase a home. So this is very, very important. I also just wanted to make one other announcement, which is it's sort of a pre-announcement because it's something that I haven't even shared with my staff yet or with my board because it just happened last week. But we've been successful through our NeighborWorks network of getting some money, not a lot of money, but getting some money to be able to be used as what's sometimes referred to as a rescue fund. And for people who are facing foreclosure, not everybody, we're going to be evaluating people on a case-by-case basis, but we've got some creative strategies that we have adopted that may be able to provide some financing to get people out of their subprime or predatory loans and get them back onto a road that will make it possible for them to get out of that loan and get into a regular mortgage. We work in partnership with all the lending institutions in New Haven. We've got outstanding relationships with them all. And we are really very, very pleased to be able to work with them to be able to get some of these folks back into regular mortgages after we have diagnosed the problem and have provided some resources to get in, to get them started on this. And so Diane, keep in mind that family, and you know, I know nothing of the situation, but there may be some help on the way that just as of last week didn't exist and now may be available. So you'll be getting more information. We'll probably be having a press release after we fine-tune the details of the program, but we do have some funds that may be able to help some people out. I think, can we hold the questions until after the PowerPoint, because I think we have a Q&A, or if this is something that's pressing, I'm happy to take a question now. One question now.
What is your name?
My name is Jim Haley. I'm the Executive Director of Neighborhood Housing Services in New Haven and the New Haven Home Ownership Center.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Tom. Tom is going to be doing the PowerPoint presentation, and I think we have some time for some questions and answers after the presentation. Tom.
Indeed. Jim, thank you so much. And we're not assuming that people cannot read. We know that you can very well, but wanted to just kind of go over some of the highlights of the PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to be assisted by Rosa Goldberg as well as Eunice Rivera. And again, it's in your package. I think it's just kind of a general handout that you can use for a basic starter, even like a conversation starter with people, either in your church, again, your neighborhood, your PTA, customers, just folks you might be aware of as